Okay, thank you very much to welcome you to Medzone African Motives. Uh, Today we are going to talk about Economic Management Science, Grade 9, Term 3, under the functions of business management, under the functions of business management. So as it says, the functions of business are the main activities needed in the business that make it operate efficiently. So what does that mean is that the business functions refer to the essential activities or departments within organizations that are going to work together to achieve goals and objectives. That's what it means. Now we are also told that business employ people with specialized knowledge and training to do specific jobs. So some business outsource, whereby they're going to pay someone outside the business to do the job. So certain functions to other outside special business. So we are going to talk about the 8 functions, which are administration, finances, general management, human resources, marketing, production, as well as public relations and purchasing. So we are now first going to start with the administration as one of those functions. We are going to start by administration as one of those functions. So here, this is whereby now we are going to talk about the managing and recording of database. This is where we're going to talk about managing and recording of database. So how are we going to record, how are we going to manage and record the database? This is where we are going to keep data in the storage, and by also making sure that you are going to maintain employee records, such as performance reviews, training documents, in a secure and easily accessible filing system. So that's how we are going to manage the recording of a database. Like it says here, administration in a business involves recording and organizing information so that business can run successfully. So administration looks after the paperwork such as letters, order forms, check sales, payment vouchers, pay slips, as well as bank statements and reports. People who work in administration are involved in filing all businesses information in a way that makes it easy to find when someone else needs it. Like I've said that with a filing that is filing and keeping data in storage can be exemplified by maintaining employee records such as performance review, like I said, training documents, as well as easily accessible filing system. Now we are moving on to finances. We are moving on to finance function. So with finance function, what we are simply going to talk about under this function is the managing of cash flow and financial transaction. Managing of cash flow and financial transaction. So this is where we're going to manage cash flow and financial transaction. Manage cash flow and financial transaction. And financial transaction. That is that. So how are we going to manage the cash flow and financial transactions? This is where we are saying a managing cash flow and financial transaction can be illustrated by creating and managing a budget for let's say, a small business, trying to track income and expenses and making financial projects. That is how we can manage cash flow and financial transaction. Here it says it is a control and record all the financial activities and records of the business. The finance function is responsible for the flow of capital into and out of the business. So the finance function is responsible for keeping up the legislation affecting the business, analyzing, reporting, planning and controlling of the finances, managing the cash flow, financial investment and properties. So that is how we can do. It's all about the managing of the finances. Now we are moving on to another function, which is general management function. General management function. This is where now you're going to set the business goals. That is a setting goals, and that is a setting of business goals when you're talking about general management function. That is setting of business goals. Business goals and financial transactions. And financial transactions. And financial transactions. This can be illustrated by creating and managing a budget for small business. Tracking. Okay. Sorry. I'm talking about general management. That is setting business goals and strategies. Sorry. Setting a business goals and strategies. Setting business goals and strategies. This one we're talking about the setting of goals and strategies. Setting of business goals and strategies. So setting of business goals and strategies. So with this one, we say the setting of business goals and strategies. You're going to set the business goals and strategies whereby they can be demonstrated by developing a comprehensive business plan, setting key performance indicators, trying to establish a clear vision and mission statement for the organization. That is how we are going to set the business goals and strategies. So here we are told that general management is a top-level management function concerned with the overall management of the business. So it means general management, he thinks of the entire business. He thinks he comes up with the strategies for the entire business. He comes up with the long-term plans for the organization. That is the role that is played by the general management. So now we are told general management is a different from other functions because it is in charge of other functions and controls the business management process. That is why I'm saying he thinks for the entire business. So now we are told about the top management. So the top management, like it says, it consists of executives who make strategic decisions. They set vision, mission, goals, and objectives. So it simply says the top management, they make what you call long-term planning. They make long-term planning. Make long-term planning. So meaning they think for the overall goals of the business. Now we move on to the middle management. Move on to middle management. So with this one, the middle management is normally the departmental managers, the financial managers, marketing manager, production manager. So the middle management makes tactical decisions, meaning the middle management, they are just going to do what? Implement. They are implementing policies or coordinating and coordinating the departments. Coordinating departments. Meaning to say, the middle management, they carry out those plans that were made on the top management. Then they make sure that they are going to put those plans into practice. That is what they are doing by making what? Tactical decisions. So they are going to make they're going to make sure that they are going to implement the plans that were planned in the top management. Then they are putting those plans into actions. Hope we are still together. Now we come to lower management. So with lower management, they're saying generally has a specific management duties that need to be carried out. They are the supervisors. And they make what? Operational decisions. Meaning to say they are making what? Operational management. They make operational management. Operational management. So this level, which is a lower level management, they are going to make sure that the tasks are carried out according to the plans that were made on the top management. So they are going to make sure that the activities are going to take place, tasks are going to be carried out, and they must be according to the plans of the organizations. The tasks that they are doing, they must what? Meet the requirements that were made on the top level. So let me move on to human resource function. Let me move to human resource function. So the human resource function is all about recruiting. It's all about recruiting and hiring of employees. So when you talk of this function, we are talking about recruiting and hiring of employees. That is the function or the role that is played by this department. They are recruiting and hiring of the employees. So now we are told the HR, the human resource function, is responsible for the labor matters. That's why we are saying it's all about recruiting and the hiring of employees. In the business, so human resource function does the following. They assess the labor needs. What is needed for the labor. They create job descriptions for the various posts in the business. The duties that are to be performed by the incumbent. They recruit staff internally and externally to fill the vacant post. As you know, there are two methods of recruiting. It can either be internally or it can be externally. So that is the role that is played by the human resource. They can make sure they can see that the post needs someone who is internal or externally. If they don't have someone who can be able to do or to fill in the post, they are now forced to go to externally. They also arrange for induction and training. So they are the ones who are making the arrangement for the induction to take place. You know, the induction, that is when we are welcoming the new recruits. That's when we are welcoming what? The new recruits, trying to familiarize them about the operations of the company, the culture of the company. So who arranges that is the human resource function. Also, they arrange weekly or monthly wage and salary payments. Even for the compensation of the employees, they are as well their task to do. They oversee the grievance procedure, dismissal, to make sure they are legal. So they also make sure that if there are grievances, they are the ones to hold the grievances. Firing of employees, they are the ones to make sure that they do it, but they have to make sure that it is legally. So now I'm moving on to another function, which is marketing function. Marketing function. So with marketing function, what we have to understand by this function, which is very important function. This is whereby they are trying to do conducting market research and analysis. Conducting market research and analysis. That is the function, that is the role that they have to play as a department. So here we are told the marketing function develops strategies to persuade consumers that their products and services are the best. So they have to go out and sell out the business. Make sure that they go out to market the business so that the customers will come in numbers, and then the business will enjoy what? Will enjoy more profits as more sales are going to come into the business. So they go out to sell the business, talk best about the business, products that the business is offering and stuff like that. Now we are moving on to other points. As you're moving on, make sure that we are still on one page. Make sure that you are listening very attentively. You are paying more heed to this presentation that is given. So now here is another point where now they are talking about market research. In market research, that is to establish market needs and preferences and what competition is there in the market. They establish what market needs and preferences, which is very important to know the market needs and taste and preferences of consumer so that you're going to offer what customers need. So it's very important to do what? A market research. Go out to make what? A market research. Go out to do what you call prospecting, trying to find what are the needs of the customers so that you're going to respond to their needs, so that you're going to attend to their problem. Now I'm moving on to product research. A product research, that is to establish which product or service will satisfy consumer needs. You now know what are the needs of the consumers and their preferences. So that will be easy for you to establish the product or the service that is going to be able to satisfy the customer's needs. Distribution, decide on the correct place and time to market your product and services. So make sure that the product is going to be accessible. Customers are going to be able to access it. It's not hard to get what a product. That is when we are talking about the distribution and they're saying a correct place. Now the other one, determine a price that the market will be willing to pay. Make sure that the price that you're going to give worths the product and the consumers are going to be willing to pay. So make sure that the price that you are coming up with is in the market. So that is very important. Communicate to the market, use advertising and sales promotion. Communicate to the market, use advertising. Very important. And sales promotions. So that is very important also to make sure that you're going to do what sales promotions so that you are making sure that your product is going to sell in the market. Establish a brand for the business and its product. So here you establish a brand for the business and its products. Now we are moving on to production function. You know very well that production is the heart of the business. You cannot market if there is no a product to market. You cannot sell if there is no a product. So a product is the heart of the business. Take note of that. So here, under the production, they are saying the production function uses resources to manufacture goods or offer services to its consumer market. So with this one, this is whereby now we are going to, that is the designing and manufacturing of products. Designing and manufacturing of products. Designing and manufacturing of products. Designing and manufacturing of products, where the production now is taking place. So they are saying the production function makes sure that the products or services are of good quality, can compete with the business. So make sure that the products that you're going to come up, they are quality so that they don't have defects. The consumers are going to like them. That is very important. Producing high quality goods and keeping cost low. Produce high quality goods while at least you are keeping your cost low. Don't make cost to be more than your revenues or your incomes. But so doing that, then you'll be running the loss. Handling volumes to meet consumer demands. Handling volumes to meet consumer demand. Make sure that you are not going to run short of stock, or you're not going to produce more stock that is not going to, the consumers are not going to buy. So you see, make sure that you know your customers. That is why that will help you to produce the volume that is going to meet their consumer demands. Don't produce more, don't find yourself with excess stock whereby now it's going to remain in the business, no one is buying it. Or don't find yourself in a situation where now you're short of a stock. Consumers now are going to run away from you and switch to your rivals. Improving the operation of the business. So it's very important to improve your operations of the business. Buy machineries that are very good, that will produce good products. Meet consumer expectations. That is very important. That's why we're talking about the market research function. It's because that department is going to help the production department to do what? To meet the consumer expectations, because they went out to try to find out what are the consumers' needs. So even in the production department, make sure that you're going to produce the products that are going to attend to the needs of the customers. Hope we are still together. Now I'm moving on to public relations function. Public relations function. So with public relation functions, this is where we are going to try to manage company reputation and image. So with this one, we are trying to manage company reputation and image. How so? It's because we are told that the public relations functions looks after the public image of the business. It creates a link between the business and its environment by promoting a good image of the business and explain the vision and mission and programs of operations to the public. So a good public image improves the ability of the business to make a profit and grow successfully. So that is whereby now you're going to also behave very well. You're going to respect your customers. You are going to make sure that even the environment where your business is established is not negatively impacting what the customers. So here we are told that the public relation function does the following: evaluates public opinion by means of market research. That is very important. They do what? They evaluate public opinion by means they go out to know what customers need, so that they know that they are going to respect. Plans activities that make the public think well of the business. Issue projects in disadvantaged communities. So that is that. They can now come up, they can now invest into the community where their business is being established. They can now do what? Give back to the community by coming up with the projects to help that the community to grow and improve. And that will give them a good image that we are talking about. It builds the image and a brand of the business. That is true. That is going to build the image of the business. Now, we are now going to the purchasing function. So, with this department, purchasing function, one of the important function as well. This is whereby now we are going to do what? Sourcing and procuring materials and suppliers. Sourcing and procuring materials and suppliers. So that is the function or role that is played by this department. Because the purchasing function does all the buying of business, from the stationary equipment required to raw materials for any production process to vehicles for the business fleet. So the purchasing function is responsible for identify suitable suppliers, research prices, and the availability of the supply. So they go out to look the suitable suppliers which are with correct materials. Also, they want the reasonable prices, so that they are going to make sure that the company is not going to spend more. Also, the availability of the suppliers, that they are going to be always there when they need what? The raw materials. Not to say when you come tomorrow, they are out of stock. So that is that. Also, to choose a supplier and issue an order. So they are the one to choose the suppliers. They will be having more suppliers, then they choose the best one that they can go for, with reasonable price, with quality raw materials, and knowing for sure that they are always having a stock. Also, they follow up on the order and make delivery arrangements. So the orders are followed by the purchasing departments and also those delivery, to make sure that what has been ordered is going to reach in the hands of the organization. They also check delivery and inspect it against the delivery note or invoice. So that inspection is done by this department. Also, they distribute goods to the function requiring the goods. So that is that about this function. Now we move on to risk management function. Risk management function. Whereby with this function, we are told that the risk management function is responsible for identifying and assessing the possibility risk to the business, such as natural disasters, financial investment, credit risk, as well as the accidents in the workplace that might happen. So the job of risk manager is to develop a plan to reduce the impact of risks. That is their role. They can do this by avoiding the risk and taking out the insurance against the risk, taking precautions to reduce the negative of the risk, and accepting some of all possible and real consequences of the risk. So these are the functions of the business management. Now we are to move on to Make sure that we are still on one page. Make sure that you are still with me. So now we are going to test ourselves with these questions under business functions. We are now going to test ourselves with these questions under business so that we can see if we are still together and then we understand what is going on. So the question here, it says, match the description in column B with the business function in column A. So the first one in column A is public relations. Remember, we talked about public relations. Where we said it is a managing company reputation and image. So now let's see which one is going to match that. So if we can go for D, you can see that is a correct answer. Because when we talk of public relations, we are talking about where we are trying to manage the company reputation as well as the image of the company. So this function looks after the public image of the business. So that is a correct answer. Now coming to the administration. Then we have to see which one is going to match with the administration. So now we can go to G. As we can see, it says it looks after the paper work. It looks after the paperwork such as letters, order forms, check sales, payment vouchers, payslip, bank statements, and reports. You remember that when we're talking about this administration, we have said that is the managing of records and the database. Whereby we are talking about the paperwork, wherever we are talking about what? Paperwork such as those letters, forms, check sales, and stuff like that. So the correct answer there is what? Is G. Now we are coming to the marketing function, and then we want to see how we are going to as well as match it. You remember when we were talking about marketing function, we were talking about wherever you're going to conduct market research and analysis, doing what you call a prospecting, finding out the needs of the customers. So now let's see how we are going to match it. Marketing. Now let's go to F. Let's go to F. This is where it says, this function develops strategies to persuade consumers that their products and services are the best. When you do marketing, this is where you're going to sell out yourself. You're going to sell out the business. What best is going to do to our consumers. Hope we are still on one page. We are still together. Then we come to purchasing. The purchasing, if you still remember when we were talking about purchasing, we were saying this is the sourcing and procuring materials as well as the supplier. So now we want to see what will be our answer under that. Now we go to B. Let's go to B. Let's go to B together and see whether it will match our function. Whether it will match our function. So B says this function does all the buying. Remember, we have said sourcing and procuring materials. When we procure, that's when we are purchasing materials. This function does all the buying of the business, from the stationary equipment required to raw materials for any production process to vehicles for the business. So the correct answer is B. The correct answer is B. Now we come to human resource management. If you still remember, when we're talking about human resource, we're talking about recruiting and hiring of employees. Recruiting and hiring of the employees. So now let's go to H. Let's go to H and see what it holds for us. So here is our H where it says, this function is responsible for the labor matters. Like we were saying, it's hiring labor matters in the business. So that's a correct answer. That's the correct answer. Now we come to finance, which is a finance department, the finance function. If you still remember when we were talking about the finance department, managing of cash flow as well as financial transaction. That was when we were talking about the finance department. Now let's see the correct answer under the finance department. So let's go to A and see if it matches with that. Go to A. Analyzing. Says analyzing, reporting, planning, and controlling the finances, as well as managing cash flow and financial investment and properties. So that is the correct answer. Now we come to production. Remember, we have said for a business to run smoothly, successfully, that's when we are talking about this a function, a very important function, this one, because production is the heart of the business. You cannot market if there is no production. You cannot have that finance function if there is no production. So now let's see how it's going to mesh with the production. Let's go to E. This function uses resources to manufacture goods or services to its consumer market. That is the correct answer. Now we move on to general management. General management as our last function. General management. And now let's see the correct answer under this. So under general management, let's see the answer that is going to be the correct answer. The correct answer is C, where it says this function is concerned with the overall management of the business. Remember, we have said the general management, this is whereby a top manager is thinking for the entire organization. He's coming up with what? The long terms for the organizations. So those are the answers for the matching. Now the other question says, name the 8 business functions. So like we said, the 8 functions that we can talk about, that is administration, financing, marketing, purchasing, human resource, finance, productions, general management. Those are the answers as we have talked about those. Now we are asked also to name 3 levels of management and the type of decision made by each level. So with this one, we can talk about top level management. We can talk about middle management. We can as well talk about lower management. Those are types of management that we are going to talk about. So those are the management that we are going to talk about. Those are the 3 levels of management that we are asked to name. Those are that. So top level management, we know that they plan for the entire organization. But the middle level management, we have said, they come up with what? Tactical decision making, whereby they are going to implement the decisions that were made on the top. That is, they are going to carry out the decisions that were made on the top level management. But with lower management, that is the operational management. So that is operational decision. That is day-to-day task. That's when we are talking about the supervisors. So that is that. So now we have to move on. Now we have to move on to the extract that we are given. To move on to the extract that we are given. So let us make it clear and so that you can see it clearly. And then we'll read it together so that we are going to understand it. We are going to try by all means to understand it. Read the case study and then answer the questions. That is what we are asked. Read the case study and then answer the questions. So the question is, name the business functions mentioned in the case study and motivate your answer with what? With examples. That is the extract that you are given now. So let us make sure that now we are going to answer that together and we are going to make sure that we understand that very, very, very well. So let me just go to it. We just go to the. So we are to answer this case study whereby we are asked to name the business functions. So here we are told the ABC Clothing Company specializes in a popular range of children's clothing that is shipped to retail stores in all major towns in South Africa. This progressive business carries out market research regularly to keep up with the changing fashions and consumer preferences. That is where now our answer is. You see, when he says it carries out market research, so it means our marketing function is what? Marketing. That is our marketing function. That is our function now. Marketing function. Because now we can motivate it with that statement. Can motivate it with that statement where it says it carries out the market research regularly to keep up with the changing fashions as well as consumer preference. Once it's talk about the marketing research, it simply talk about the marketing function. Now it carries on and says it also checks on what the competition is doing and what consumers market thinks of ABC Clothing Company. Now we are told Sanel, the owner, is proud of her growing business and supportive board of directors. So that now we have another function there, which is a public relation function. Public relation function. Public relation function. Because it says it checks on what? So now we have to move on again. The management team is emphatic and competent. New suggestion for staff, curtain and gym facilities by Richard and Abrahams, which is the HR manager. HR manager. So this one is what? Human resources. This one is human resources function. This one is human resource function. So with that one, with the first one, let me just drop something here. With the first one. So this one, it was talking about, this one, it was talking about Sanel, the owner, is proud of a growing business and supportive board of directors because he's talking about the board of directors. It's a general manager. It's a general management. General management. Because the board of directors, remember, they plan and think for the entire business organization. So now let's move on. Where it says upgraded computer technology has improved information access. In addition, purchasing has identified a new supplier of raw material. So that one, the simple saying, the answer there is going to be what? Purchasing function. Purchasing function. That is that. Now we move on to another function. Now we are saying the cash flow is healthy and the firm of consultants have suggested ways to reduce business risks. So that is a financial finance. That is a finance. That is finance function because it talks about the cash flows, talks about money, managing of the budget and stuff like that. So, thank you very much for your time, and let's make sure that we are going to share with those who are concerned, and let's make sure that we are going to hit the subscription button. Thank you.
So in this case, we are having a continuous
You want to